sorprendente. De hecho, hemos ganado un poco de tiempo. Y esta es, oh, by the way, let me ask, does anyone not speak Spanish? You don't? Okay, no, that's okay. So then, let's do it in English. I was just asking to know which language would be better. Anyway, after this session, all of you will become immortal. Therefore, you will have enough time to learn Spanish, Chinese, and Russian, for example. So let's see if we can get the PowerPoint going. I'm going to talk about technological convergence and all the technologies that will change humanity in the next few years. I am founding faculty of Singularity University in California, in Silicon Valley, financed originally by Google and NASA. And we talk about the exponential technologies that will change humanity. Of course, one of those is Bitcoin. We have had many people involved with Bitcoin at Singularity University, but my focus is on longevity. And I have a book which is called The Death of Death, which will be the main focus of my presentation. I was born in Piccola Venezia, Venezuela, a small country in South America. My family is from Spain. They left Spain when Spain was poor and a dictatorship, and Venezuela at the time was rich and a democracy. Unfortunately, the situation changed for Venezuela, but one of my college friends is the Nobel Prize laureate Maria Corina Machado, who will be the next president of Venezuela next year, hopefully. But I'm not going to talk about the past, and I'm not going to talk about Venezuela. I'm going to talk about the future and immortality. I organized the biggest event in Europe about longevity in the most prestigious place in Spain, which is the College of Medical Doctors, that has the most beautiful theater in all of Spain, the College of Medical Doctors. Our conference is opened by the mayor of Madrid, who is here in the center. And this year we have invited the Queen of Spain to open the conference. We talk about longevity and how soon are we close to immortality. We also organized the March for Longevity through the main 3 points of power of Spain, the City Hall of Madrid, the Congress of Spain, and the government of the Community of Madrid. I am an engineer from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and I used to work on energy, but now I am into biotechnology. And as I mentioned, I am one of the founders of Singularity University in Mountain View, Silicon Valley, California, where we talk about immortality openly. In fact, we expect to reach biological immortality by the year 2045. And many people from the Bitcoin world are immortalists. Just to tell you a couple of people that I know and that are giving millions and millions of dollars for immortality are Vitalik Buterin, the father of Ethereum, and also Brian Armstrong. You probably also know Brian Armstrong. He's also investing millions and millions of dollars on biological rejuvenation. According to my friend Ray Kurzweil, technologies are changing exponentially, and we are going to hit the singularity by 2045. The singularity will give us also immortality, because all technologies that can be digitized are advancing exponentially, faster, better, cheaper, and smaller, continuously. We like to make the comparison about linear versus exponential change, talking about steps. If I give 30 linear steps, each step of 1 meter, after 30 steps, I have walked 30 meters. But if we think exponentially, and we double, and we double, and we double, after 30 doublings, I have walked over 1 billion meters, and I have gone around planet Earth 26 times. This is hard to understand because we think linearly, but technology is changing exponentially, even longevity. Longevity is growing exponentially. 2,000 years ago, at the time of the Roman Empire, life expectancy in Spain was 20 years. In Rome, in the capital of the empire, it was 25 years. It took centuries until life expectancy doubled. In the year 1900, life expectancy doubled to 50 years in the big cities and 40 years in the countryside. Today, we have doubled again. and we are going to double life expectancy in the next 20 years. But not only doubling, we are going to be able to rejuvenate people, as we talk about in Singularity University. When I went to university, to MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, 40 years ago, I used this primitive technology called punch cards. A punch card was 1K of memory. 1K, 10 by 100 is 1K. I used 1K of memory. And this you could not erase. Once you had 1K, you could not change it because you had holes. And so the first electromagnetic memories were invented. This is also 1K, but this 1K of memory you could erase. So we had 1K electromagnetic and 1K mechanic. And as I like to say in Spanish, 1K is 1K, K plus K, 1K plus 1K makes 1 caca. 1 caca. We had 40 years ago 1 caca of memory. Fortunately, technology kept on advancing and we moved into better devices. Here I have the following generation of floppy disk that was 512 cacas. Then we moved into this that was 1.4 mega. And here I have a pen drive of 1 terabyte. In my lifetime, since I went to MIT, we have moved from caca to terabytes. But this has not stopped. This keeps advancing exponentially. And now, from computers into biology and medicine. The Human Genome Project began in 1990, and it finished in 2003. It cost over $1 billion to sequence the first human genome. 13 years, over $1 billion. Today, you can sequence your genome for about $150 in a few hours. But soon we are going to sequence the genome, the full genome, in $10 in a few minutes. This is moving incredibly exponentially. In fact, faster than computers. When you look at what I call caca, caca is a caca compared to what is happening in biology. Biology is moving much, much faster than computing science. Also, all of you will have your genome sequenced in the next 5 years, and you will know about your health. Which genetic diseases can you have? What is the probability that you will have cancer and everything? This will be fantastic. You will know what you will die of so that you don't die of that. Because in the future, medicine will no longer be curative. Medicine will be preventive. We are going to prevent all diseases in the next 20 years. Besides knowing your genetic diseases, you will also know where your family comes from, because our history is in our genes. So this is my paternal line in the last few centuries, and you see I have a little bit of Mongolian, Asian, and famous people related to my father, Genghis Khan. So no one mess around with me. This is my paternal line. Let me show you my maternal line also in the last few centuries. Famous people, my mother also from Spain, but with family in France, and famous people related to my family, Maria Antoinette. So I have a great pedigree between Genghis Khan and Maria Antoinette. All of you will know your genealogical background once you sequence your genome, and you will be able to verify for the first time if your father is really your father. But more important than looking into the past is looking into the future, and we are going to design our descendants. In fact, at Singularity University, I did experiments with one of my students sharing genes. We shared genes. This is a theoretical experiment, okay? We shared genes to see how our children would be and to choose the genes that you want for your children. This will be a standard in the next 10 years. We will design our children. In fact, the bad news is that we are the last human generation that has not been designed. All of us are here by mistake. We will not design, but we will design also ourselves. We will redesign ourselves. The human genome is not big. The human genome is 3 gigabytes. This pen drive that I showed is 1 terabyte. 1 terabyte. If a human genome is 3 gigabytes and a terabyte is 1,000 gigabytes, I can fit here 333 humans and 1 little dog. I can put all of that in this pen drive so that you see we're not big genetically. But now also we are moving into synthetic biology, which is not reading but writing genomes. In the year 2000, scientists for the first time wrote a genome of a virus. Viruses are small. It took 10 years until a scientist wrote the genome of a bacteria. Bacteria are bigger. And in the next 20 years, we should be able to write, rewrite, modify, change the human genome. So that you see how fast this is moving, because I repeat, we are just 3 gigabytes of data. We are not that complicated. Anyway, I like also science fiction, and one of the most famous science fiction authors, Sir Arthur C. Clarke, The Space Odyssey 2001, he wrote the 3 laws of the future, and he said, when a famous scientist says that something is possible, he's probably right. But when he says it is impossible, he's probably wrong. Second law of the future, the only way of discovering the limits of the possible is to venture past those limits into the impossible. And third law, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. We are going to see magic in the next 20 years. In fact, what has happened in the last few decades? 40 years ago, when I was at MIT, there were no personal computers. I typed my thesis at MIT on a typewriter. I don't know if you have seen that primitive technology, typewriters. Those existed 40 years ago. Then, 30 years ago, cell phones were coming out. 20 years ago, companies like Google, Facebook were becoming global. 10 years ago, artificial intelligence was growing. But what we will see in the future, we are going to have immortality. We are going to cure aging. In fact, we consider today that aging is a disease, but a curable disease that we will cure in the next 2 decades. And this has been the biggest dream of humanity since history started, with the first book ever written by humans, the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is about immortality. The first book written by humans was about immortality. The second book was also about immortality. The Book of the Dead by the pharaohs in Egypt was about immortality. In China, the Chinese emperor who unified China for the first time, Qin Shi Huang, he wanted to be immortal. He built a terracotta army to protect him. Here in Spain, the Spanish were looking for immortality when America was discovered. The goal of going to America was to find the fountain of eternal youth. And all religions talk about immortality. Religion offers you immortality, but immortality in another time, in another place. Now, thanks to science, we can have immortality here and now in the next 20 years. We just came out from COVID. COVID has been a horrible pandemic, and the #1 cause of death under COVID was your age. Young people did not die of COVID. People died because of their age more than COVID. COVID, which was the first time it stops humanity in peace times. This had never happened before. The whole planet was paralyzed for 2 years for a big pandemic. However, in historic terms, COVID is nothing. COVID is a caca pandemic. COVID was a very small pandemic. COVID only killed 0.0001% of the people. If you really want to see a mega pandemic, that was the bubonic plague. The bubonic plague killed 1/3 of all Europeans. 1/3 of the people died. Incredible. COVID is nothing compared to that. And not just compared to the bubonic plague, to smallpox, the Spanish flu, and other plagues, AIDS. Those are big pandemics that kills millions and millions and millions of people. Not COVID. COVID was a tiny caca pandemic. However, if COVID paralyzed the planet, imagine now that we are so close to cure the biggest pandemic, the pandemic that kills everybody, which is called aging. Aging kills 100% of the people. The bubonic plague killed only 1 out of every 3. But aging will kill us, all of us, unless we kill aging before aging kills us. And we are very close, as you will see. Also, the #1 cause of death for all diseases, all chronic diseases, is your age. For influenza, cancer, cardiovascular disease, Alzheimer's, the #1 risk factor is your age. It is not smoking. It is not eating a lot of sweets. No, no, no. The #1 risk factor of anything is your age. When you are 20, you can smoke all the time, drink all the time, and do anything, and you will not die. But the #1 risk factor, I repeat, is aging. And now we know that aging is the mother of all chronic diseases. We have to go from the sick care treatment we had in the past to the health care treatment of the future, where aging is the cause of all chronic diseases. We don't need to stop cancer. We don't need to stop Alzheimer's. What we need to stop is aging. If we stop aging, no Alzheimer's, no cancer, no heart attacks. The problem is aging. Aging is the elephant in the room. And so, during the pandemic, my colleague David Wood, who invented Symbian, if you had a Nokia, the operating system was invented by my friend David. We decided to write a book about the biggest challenge of humanity. The biggest challenge of humanity is not terrorism, it's not wars, it's not climate change. The biggest challenge of humanity is that we are all dying. We are all dying. But fortunately, we are close to cure aging forever. When we published the book, it was immediately #1 in Spanish first. And you can see the book on my tie. But not only in Spanish, in all languages. My book is a bestseller now in 15 languages, and we are donating all the money to different foundations. The book is a major bestseller in English, in Chinese, in Spanish, and in 15 other languages around the world. In fact, I have presented it in all the shows here in Spain, and it has become popular because you might have heard in September last year, Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin were talking about immortality. In September last year, well, let me tell you, I was invited to present my book in the Kremlin last year. I was invited by the Vice President of Russia, and now I will go to China to talk about immortality because Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping know that we are very close to immortality. But not only the bad guys, the best guy in the planet, my dear friend, Javier Milei. Javier Milei has publicly said, in the major newspaper of Argentina, that my book is his favorite book. Javier Milei. In fact, you can read it in La Nación, the main newspaper of Argentina. His favorite book, La Muerte de la Muerte. In any event, we are going to cure aging. This is advancing very fast, and that is why people don't know about it. But look at what has happened in the last 20 years. In the last 20 years, we have been able to double life expectancy of mice. We have mice today that live the equivalent of 200 human years. 200 human years equivalent. We have mosquitoes that live 400 human years equivalent. And we have worms that live 1,000 human years equivalent. These are called the Methuselah worms because Methuselah lived 1,000 years in theory. Anyway, this is not to have immortal worms. This is to have immortal humans. But there is something more about immortality. Immortality already exists in nature. In fact, cancer cells are mutant cells that become immortal. Cancer cells become immortal. This was discovered in 1951 with a patient, Henrietta Lacks, who had a big tumor. And the tumor was extracted, and scientists discovered that the tumor did not die. The tumor kept on growing as long as it had food, okay, because it requires food to grow and to live. But cancer is immortal. And cancer cells discover immortality without going to university. Cancer cells didn't go to university. Cancer cells do not even know how to read, but they discovered immortality. And they did not pay for a therapy of €1 million. They didn't pay anything. They did it for free. Immortality will be free. Also, we know that there are good cells, the germ cells, that all of us have germ cells. They are also immortal. The cells for reproduction do not age, and they are called biologically immortal. Additionally, there are small animals like hydras and jellyfish that are biologically immortal, animals that do not age. Also, aging is very variable. Aging can go from 2 years for some mice to 200 years for whales, 400 years for sharks, 500 years for clams, and even immortal animals, like I mentioned, jellyfish and hydras. So, thanks now to sequencing the genome, we are discovering the genes of immortality. The genes of immortality. Also, bacteria are biologically immortal. The first organisms in the planet do not age. So humans just appeared very recently. We just appeared 200 million years ago. There have been many experiments before us that achieve immortality. Anyway, so let me talk about my dear friend Aubrey de Grey. Aubrey de Grey is the most famous person about immortality. He writes the prologue of my book. And he was called a charlatan by MIT. My university, MIT Technology Review in 2005 said that he was a charlatan, that immortality was impossible. MIT changed its mind 14 years later and said, old age is over if you want it. Imagine the change of mentality of MIT, the top scientific university in the USA, saying it was impossible to saying we are very close. That is how close we are to immortality. German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer talks about it. Every truth goes through 3 stages. First, it is ridiculed. Second, it is violently opposed. And third, it is accepted as evident, self-evident. I want all of you to remember this talk and take pictures and look at them in the year 2045. Because in the year 2045, we will have rejuvenated. We will be younger in the future. And you will remember today when we were old today. When we were old today. My friend, Brian Johnson, actually, he's with his book, Don't Die, Mine is Much Better, read mine. He's doing experiments for rejuvenation in Honduras and in other places. My other friend, Ray Kurzweil, who also writes in my book, he's talking about the 3 bridges to immortality that he emphasizes on his book, newest book, The Singularity is Near, to the Singularity is Nearer. He talks about convergence of technologies, everything towards the singularity in the year 2045, when we will reach immortality through biological rejuvenation. AI is the big elephant helping longevity. As you probably know, Demis Hassabis, founder of DeepMind, owned today by Google, he got the Nobel Prize in chemistry for sequencing the proteins, all the proteins, 200 million proteins, very quickly. This was the work of years and years of biologists. Anyway, he has now created a new company called Isomorphic Labs. Read it, because they just got yesterday $2 billion of additional financing. And look at what it says, Isomorphic Labs. Solve all diseases, including aging, in 10 years. In 10 years, we will cure all diseases through artificial intelligence. Sam Altman has said the same. In 20 years, at the latest, we will have age reversal. If you go to Silicon Valley, I will go tomorrow, in fact, to San Francisco, all the companies are talking about immortality. All the technology companies are investing about immortality. Google created Calico, California Life Company, with only one purpose, only one goal, to cure aging. Aging is a reversible condition. Mark Zuckerberg, when he created his foundation with his wife, Priscilla Chan, who is a biologist and a medical doctor from the University of California, San Francisco, they announced they are going to cure all diseases in this generation, all diseases, beginning with the mother, which is aging. But if you don't like Facebook or you don't like Google, don't worry. Apple also said they will be remembered for what they are doing in health. Microsoft will cure cancer. And of course, Jeff Bezos, he created a company called Altos Labs to cure aging in the next 2 decades. In the next 2 decades. This will be the biggest industry in the planet. That is why all the Bitcoiners, billionaires are putting money into this. I don't know what you do, and I don't mind, don't care. If you are not into longevity, you are not into the future, and you are going to die. So move into longevity, the biggest industry in the planet in the next 2 decades, moving from millions to billions to trillions. 3 years ago, with my friend Peter Diamandis, co-founder of Singularity University, we announced in Saudi Arabia the biggest prize in the history of humanity, $101 million to have biological rejuvenation by the year 2030. There are 730 teams competing for biological rejuvenation by the year 2030. And now we know that we can rejuvenate. The Nobel Prize in Medicine of 2012, Shinya Yamanaka, we brought him to Madrid 2 years ago. He discovered that aging is a medical condition that can be treated, it can be cured, that aging can be reversed. Nobel Prize in Medicine, 2012. And my friend, David Sinclair, who studied at MIT, his postdoc, now he's at Harvard, he is working on rejuvenated mice. So all of you are welcome to Madrid. Why Madrid? Because Madrid has the longest life expectancy of any city in the European Union. This is the most longevous city in the European Union, 86.1 years. And in the past, Spain was the country of non plus ultra, because Spain was the end of the Roman Empire. There was nothing beyond Spain, non plus ultra. Then Spain discovered America, and we became the country of far beyond of America. And now my goal is to change it into Vita plus ultra, the country of life far beyond. So all of you are invited to the most beautiful amphitheater of Spain, the College of Medical Doctors, for my conference on immortality, the biggest one in Europe. So come to Madrid, join us. We will have 2 days of UNESCO tours, September 28 and 29, and 2 days of conference. We will go through the center of Madrid for the Stop Aging Conference. So join us. You will have t-shirts, you will have balloons. We will show you how beautiful Spain is, the most beautiful Roman aqueduct in the world, which is not in Rome, is not in Italy, it is here in Spain, 2,000 years old, and the most beautiful castle in the world, the castle of Segovia. We will begin here in the City Hall of Madrid. We will go crossing the city with the campaign of Stop Aging. We will go to the government of the province of Madrid. We will go to the City Hall, the most famous place, and we will go to the Congress of Spain, because we are pushing for immortality here in Spain. So I plan to be younger in the future, not because of a Russian app like Face app. I plan to be younger because of biotechnology. Biotechnology will make us younger in the future. So read my bestseller in any of 15 languages, from Russian to Chinese to Arabic to Japanese to Persian, and of course, typical languages, Spanish, French, German. Join the march, the Rally for Longevity, meet the most beautiful amphitheater in Spain, and meet the mayor of Madrid. So, all welcome to Madrid, because Benjamin Franklin said something that was wrong. He said that there were only two certainties in life, death and taxes, and that he was wrong. I hope that you have Bitcoins and don't pay taxes, and I hope that you don't die. So join me, and now that we are going for lunch, remember the most beautiful quote by Benjamin Franklin. In wine, there is wisdom. In beer, there is freedom. but in water there is bacteria. So no water, and live long and prosper. Thank you very much. We have a few seconds if you have questions, and now there is lunch anyway. So if anyone has questions, please, I'll be happy.
How do you personally imagine the future where the lifespan is basically infinite, but the world is inherently finite and the planet is finite?
Where are you from?
Czechia, Prague.
Okay. Thomas Malthus, an economist, British economist, said in 1786, when he published his book about the limits to population, that it was the end of the world, because London had 1 million people, Britain had 10 million people, and the world was reaching 1 billion, and that it was the end. It was the end. Not enough space, not enough resources. So anyway, this is a fallacy. This is a myth which is not right. It is, if you read my bestseller, next year also in Czech, by the way, you will discover that this is a fallacy. In fact, in Czechia also the population is stable and coming down, like in most of Europe. The population is declining. The problem is that the population is declining. That is why the government of China published my book. China is going to lose 750 million people by the end of the year. China loses one full Czechia every year. Every year from here to the end of the century is losing one Czechia. So we need to stop that blood. Anyway, there are good problems and bad problems. The bad problem is that you are going to die unless you do something. And if you want to die, that's okay. I'm fine, I'm libertarian. If you want to die, feel free to die. But I don't plan to die. And again, I plan to be younger in the future. And we are getting to that technology. The Nobel Prize in Medicine discovered that aging can be reversed. So if you want to die and get old, go ahead. But I plan to be younger, and I plan to be immortal in the next 20 years. And then we will solve those problems. All those problems we will solve. Time is up, but if you want any more comments, now we have, yes, quickly.
So like biological immortality is achievable or desirable, but will it like affect our identity, motivation, or like meaning in life?
Okay, this is a good question. Some people say what gives meaning to life is death, which I think is very stupid. This is like what gives meaning to marriage is divorce. You know, what gives meaning to marriage is marriage. What gives meaning to life is life. Better life, healthier life, longer life. You know, if you are 20 years of biological age, which is my goal, I plan to be 20. Your life is full of energy. You want to do things. You want to try different foods, look different movies, travel to different countries, go to different planets. We will have that possibility. So don't worry. If you are 20 indefinitely, you will not run out of ideas. But again, if you want to die, you are free to die. And actually, I divide people in two groups. The immortalists, like myself, and the deathists. The deathists will die, and that is okay. They will disappear from the planet because they wanted to die, because they thought there were too many people. Actually, for the people who think that we are too many, I tell them, if you really believe that, give the example and get rid of yourself, because you are part of the problem. You are not part of the solution. Okay. As you can see, I'm very ironic anyway. So, but don't worry. If you are 20, you will have many more things to do.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And again, read my book and come to Madrid if you want to come to the conference so that you don't die. Those who come to the conference will not die, guaranteed, or your money back.